One thing that we've also touched on previously is imposter syndrome and how it shows up a lot for women, people of color in general. So can you share a little bit about how that's shown up in the journey and why it's an important conversation to have? Um, yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely. I feel sometimes the imposter syndrome comes from lack of understanding of your own worth. And that's sometimes it derives from the inability to see people who look like you in that environment.
Yeah.
Coming here at a very early age, I had to figure out how to fit in, how to be but still be true to myself. Thankfully, given how close I am to my cultural upbringing, first generation, I still have that, and I don't miss it. So for me, I'm able to really kind of walk this line in which I know who I am, I know what my background is, but I know the things I need to do in order for me to be at times palatable for individuals here. And not to say that's good or bad, everything's kind of relevant in my opinion, but overall it's adapting has always been a very important piece in my life because fitting in is probably, I think that's a very human thing. It's you don't want to be an outlier, you don't want to be an outcast, right? So to be honest, it's also probably more deeply, it's probably been my greatest fear. It's not fitting in.
Welcome to From Home to Here, where we dive deep into the compelling stories of immigrants and children of immigrants to shift the narrative and break the silence barrier. I'm Cornwall, your podcast host, and together we'll explore the journeys that shape and define us. Today, our guest is David. David Zacarro is a senior financial analyst at Cboe Global Markets and a first-generation immigrant from Honduras. At 17, he moved to the United States to pursue new opportunities, ultimately earning his degree from Kansas State University. He is currently completing a master's in business administration at the University of Kansas while balancing his professional career and personal passions. With a deep appreciation for resilience, adaptability, and connection, David is passionate about exploring new cultural experiences, understanding how businesses operate and evolve, and fostering meaningful personal and professional relationships. As the second in his family to navigate the corporate world, he understands the challenges of cultural assimilation and the responsibility of being an advocate for loved ones adjusting to life in a new country. David is happily married to his wife, Hope, and they share their home with their two beloved German shepherds, Augie and Addie. In their free time, he enjoys traveling, hiking, and engaging in thoughtful conversations that inspire growth and belonging. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you for having me.
We are super excited for this conversation, and I want to just start off with your journey to the United States. So you said you moved here when you were 17 years old. So tell us what that was like. Any emotions or challenges that you faced trying to adapt to a new country and the new place to call home?
Yeah, no, look, it was a really interesting experience. And just to put into perspective, very privileged upbringing, because my family was the nuclear family. Everything was good. Both parents present in the picture, grandparents as well. Grew up in a very small town, relatively safe, idyllic. It was literally like a beach town, so beautiful. My hometown of Tela. Lived there for 17 years. Went to a bilingual school, so I grew up speaking English. So adapting to the new country was more about learning the lingo and potential mannerisms, not really
Yeah.
mastering language because I already knew how to speak the language relatively well. But overall, the big gap was coming here at a very early age and trying to figure out how to fit in, how to adapt, who I was as a person, which that was the biggest challenge, which it took me all throughout college to really figure out who I was. But overall, it was great. Life in Honduras, at least during the time I was there, was amazing. Family was present, was great. Um, so when I graduated from high school in Honduras, which my school that I attended went to 11th grade, I had the opportunity to either go straight into college or take kind of a gap year and do my senior year of high school in the States, so 12th grade, to really adapt and then figure out what I was going to do, right? So when I left home, I left Honduras, then Honduras, I went to live with my family in Rosamond, California. So that's basically, it's in the Mojave Desert. That's an hour and a half northeast of LA. So it's not the fancy California living you're thinking. It's more peaceful, serene, a valley, desert, kind of like Joshua Tree. But it was a great time. My family, they took me in, loved me, gave me everything I needed to thrive and adapt to this new life. And it was a great experience because I realized that I was very sheltered and I was extremely privileged because um, the school that I went to in I think it was Southern Kern Unified School District at the time, if I recall correctly, was the most underfunded school district in California. So it was kind of like a not night and day, but there was a difference in the quality of education that I received in a third world country in Honduras versus the education I was receiving as a senior in the United States, in California specifically. So that just put everything into perspective and made me realize, wow, like I'm very lucky to be here, to have the full support of my family. And it was an amazing experience. And then shortly after, I was able to figure out what to do for university, which was pretty insane. But yeah, long story short, it took me about a week to figure out exactly what I was gonna do,
Okay.
and then I was in Honduras, and then a week later, I was in Manhattan, Kansas, about to start my freshman year. So it was, it was really cool, but I remember, like, people always ask me, like, "Dude, Kansas, from Honduras, from,
Yeah.
California, what happened?" And realistically, it was as simple as, "Look, I was very mature, um, lacking, time management skills. I forgot to apply in a timely manner for school in California. And then my cousin who was attending K-State told me, dude, don't worry. I know you didn't take your SATs, ACTs, which I did not. And basically told me, don't worry about standardized testing and don't worry about enrollment because it's open enrollment. So I applied. And then like a week later, I was in Manhattan, Kansas. So yeah, that's
When did you decide you wanted to stay and like do college in the United States?
Oh, when my first day of high school, I realized this is awesome. I want to see where this leads.
Yeah.
Um, Funny thing is, I was at that time, like I wasn't really sure about college. I was weighing the possibility of joining the military. I wasn't really sure, but then my dad kind of steered me towards, hey, potentially explore this. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, then like you can pursue the military career. Um, but yeah, so it was basically my idea was if I'm already here, I want to see where this leads to completion. If it doesn't work out, great. If it doesn't, amazing.
Yeah.
So,
How was the transition from then California to Manhattan? Because I know the transition from New York to Kansas was not easy.
it's funny. Manhattan, Kansas, and the culture in Kansas was more similar to Honduras than California, even though like people in California are predominantly Hispanic.
Yeah.
A lot of my classmates, Hispanic, Mexican, Central American, Honduran, and Salvadorian, but it was very different. Um, in Kansas, even though it's mostly white, as you know, like everyone was so friendly in it. I was like, wow, this is very different from my last year.
It feels homely. Eventually you get there.
I know it, and that's why I'm like, you know what? Like Kansas kind of reminds me of Honduras in the sense of like culturally, we're very like the Midwest culture. It's like open arms.
Yeah.
Hey, come here. We're friendly. Like I'm gonna treat you right. And that's why like I really liked about Kansas. Culture here was amazing and
Yeah.
still reminds me a lot of home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you come by yourself originally? It was just you, not your nuclear family, and then you stayed with extended family in California?
Yeah.
So did you feel this like sense of responsibility then that like you had to make it work?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So, funny thing is, I am the middle child. I have an older sister who lives in New Orleans, and I have a younger brother who lives here in Kansas City. So, my sister came to the States first, to New Orleans, and started school. So, like, I had her as a role model. It's like, all right, she's doing well. So I cannot F this up. So it's like I went to California and I was like, all right, let's make this work. And thankfully, like I did. Like the support I have from my uncle, my aunt, and like my cousins was amazing. They took me in, like, even though like I do have a connection with my uncle, but growing up, he lived in the States. So we had a very limited connection, but I always had a great like understanding of who he is as a person, really great guy. But it was like nothing. It's like I haven't seen you in a couple of years, but come here. You're my kid now. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing with a lot of cultural families is just like even the aunts and the uncles, they just feel like they're still like they're second parents. That they're that relationship with them is very unique in that my sibling's kid is like my kid, and so they treat you like that, and I feel like that having that support system when you came to the United States was probably a huge part in, like, making it feel more homey
Absolutely.
and more just, "I belong here, I can do this," and gives more sense of comfort to the entire journey. You talked about being, the chosen one, and I want you to explain what first of all, what that even means
Yeah.
in, like, an immigrant family context.
Sure. Yeah, and that's, not necessarily saying that I'm the favorite one whatsoever. I'm quite sure that's my sister. She was the first born, so, like, good on you, gracia. But in my perspective, being the chosen one is being the individual who's the go-to whenever any family member needs something to get done. Um, Whether or not in the situation in which like maybe they're not as adapted to this country, you're basically like their resource. You're the chosen one to help them out, figure out life, and to guide them through the process. So, given that my mother lives here in Kansas City, I've been that to her. And obviously, my sister can't usually because she's in a different state and city. But, yeah, no, look, it's a great responsibility and something that definitely sometimes weighs a little heavy because it is an additional responsibility, but at the end of the day, it's like, look, I mean, I have adapted fairly well to this country. My mother, she's trying her best, and she's done a great job, but if I can help her expedite that process, it's my duty as a son to do that. Any family member, like because like we were talking about it earlier, it's like, my uncle, my aunt, they, took me in as their own. They showed me the ropes, and in a way that was their duty. But they did it with an absolute like love and pleasure, like to guide me through a process. And it's like it's my own mother, it's like I should do the same. And to be honest, I did the same thing with my brother. Like my brother lived with my then girlfriend slash fiance at the time for like almost 3 years. And imagine like being like shortly graduating college. I was basically like 4 years out of college with my girlfriend at the time, and then she was kind enough to open our home to our like to my 16-year-old brother. That's unheard of. It's wild. So it's like there's layers to this, and obviously, like as a family member and as an immigrant, it's like it's your duty to do that. But also, like sometimes we have friends and allies, like in my case, my now wife, that like really helped me. Uh, we worked on this together to guide my brother and give him a better life as well. So it's no, it's obviously in the scope and the context of like my mother and I am the chosen one to help her out. But there's also like other people that do help. And I think their contribution cannot be like ignored.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation with somebody else, but like as you grow older as a child of immigrants or as an immigrant and now you're like responsible for or you begin gaining responsibilities for your payment for your parents, it's kind of like a setback. I remember we had guests over not too long ago and I was literally just talking about this and um usually my mom is helping in the kitchen like making the tea and like serving everybody and I was doing that this time, and this was, like, my first time home in a minute, and she was sitting down, and I just had to, like, realization that, like, as I get older, I'm hitting an age where, like, more responsibilities are on me, and, like, kind of connecting to the point of being the chosen one where, like, you're their go-to person, that's like a comfort thing for them, right? Of, like, I know I can go
Yeah.
to my daughter or my son, and, like, they got my back, they know what I need to do, and if you think about it, it's also, like, they used to be that for us, like,
Yeah.
at some point I mean,
Yeah.
at a point when we were younger, it was, "Mom, do this. Mom, do that," or, like, "Dad," whoever, like, that person in your life, and now the roles have reversed, and
Yeah.
it just, like it sets you back of just like, "Whoa," like, yeah, there's a sense of responsibility that's on our shoulders that's greater than just ourselves, or just a small family thing. It's a big immigrant mentality to have to care for more than just ourselves. I mean, it's everybody that's in the picture, so,
Completely agree.
yeah. Um, how did your experiences at K-State and Manhattan, we can talk about both, shape your aspirations, your goals? How'd you figure out what you wanna do with your life? Um, did you feel a shift in, like, your identity of leaving home? How did you make like, just all of it? How'd you make that home? Is it home?
Yeah. Oh, well, great question. You know, K-State did feel like home just because culturally it was very similar to
Yeah.
like home. Um, However, trying to think back at that time, I was obviously still very mature, 17 years, a lot of liberty. I was obviously having fun. I joined fraternity. I was trying to like assimilate very heavily. It's like the quintessential American experience. All right. It's like join fraternity, you have fun, you try to go to class, try your best. In hindsight, it's like, yeah, I could have calibrated my life slightly better to set myself my current self, in a better situation. Not that it's bad, right? But it's like obviously maturity definitely impacted my development because of the amount of liberty I had. And it took me a long time to figure out exactly what I want to do with life. Something looking back that I did not have. Um, I guess my sister was, but it was slightly different experience. I didn't really have someone that I could be like, "Hey, this is my life so far. Maybe you've done something similar and you're ahead of me. Can you please tell me your mistakes for me to like improve upon?" And that's something in hindsight. If I would have had a mentor, like it would have been a way easier time adapting and also figuring out who I am, um, and to develop myself professionally in a way better, at a way better rate rather. Because all these mistakes I had to learn on my own. I never had an internship in college, and something in hindsight, it's like, man, I should have done that as a freshman, sophomore. So definitely a learning experience, and also very ignorant as well because I thought, all right, I'm going to graduate with a degree in finance. Anyone's going to hire me. I'm going to get a great job. It's like, no, realistically, thousands of people are graduating with like degrees similar to yours, who have like, more rounded experiences and realistically way better GPAs than whatever I had. So it was, it was an awakening, but it was something I needed to have because I had to learn this on my own because I did not have a mentor. I have to figure it out. So when it came to adapting, it was, to be honest, given that was able to speak the language, it was fairly easy. And also I had that gap year that allowed me to like immerse myself in the American culture. So adapting and fitting in was an issue. For me, it was more along the lines of like, right, who am I and what's my future like? Um, and having a realistic forecast as to what life was, it's something I did not have, and I wish I had back then. That would have helped me a lot.
I think one thing you touched on was not having mentorship of somebody that you can look up to that's like kind of that has gone down the same path. And that's something you see across a lot of immigrants or even first generation college students in general, that you go into college and you have a plan for yourself of what you can do to be successful, but now you're stuck in a spot where maybe you don't know what the next step is. So talk a little bit about the importance of one having that mentorship and like I know you touched on a little bit about how that would have changed the trajectory, maybe a little bit about having an internship or maybe doing things differently.
Absolutely. I think it would have been extremely beneficial for me. Because like in hindsight, it's like I realized a type of industry that I was very interested in was senior year of high school, excuse me, college was venture capital private equity. And then very late, literally last class, I realized, oh man, I haven't done anything to prepare myself to be like even like given an interview for this type of role. So if I would have like rewinded the clock like maybe 2.5 years, I would have had enough time to figure out whether or not like I would have been able to do this properly. And I think mentorship is extremely important. And now that I know, I've been trying to like pay it forward and actually to
Good.
be a mentor for others. Currently at my role, my company has a program called Cboe Empowers. They actually like pay full ride tuition for like individuals of well, um, minorities in general, right? From the Kansas City, Chicago, and New York area. And I've been able to be paired up with a student who's actually attending Cornell. Amazing guy, like super rock star, like look, great background. But something that he told me, and I realized it's like, hey, look, my family, they haven't attended college, like, I'm the first one, and I was able to relate to that even though, like, my parents did attend college, they did not attend college here in the States, which is completely different,
Very different.
and this was probably, like, what, 40 years ago. So, me being able to, like, help him out as little as I can to, like, maybe adapt better or plan for the future to, like, "All right, dude, it's like, you wanna do this for your career? How can you set yourself up to for success by doing XYZ internship or, like, getting whatever job you need to, like, boost up your, resume?" But, yeah, I think it's extremely important. Sorry to be redundant here, but, like, I think, that's something I do look back, and I wish that's the only thing I would change because I now I realize how important that is. Just because having someone who from a relatively similar background with similar experiences that you can rely, or relate to is very important because it not only, like, shows you the do's and don't, right? But also, like, makes you see it's like, "All right, you did it. We're very alike. I can do the same." So
For sure. Transitioning into a little bit about your career now, how did you end up doing what you're doing?
yeah, so I work for, Cboe Global Markets is, probably, like, the biggest derivatives exchange here in North America, and it was, to be honest, pure luck. I reached out to my hiring manager, well, that this was almost 4 years ago, through LinkedIn. After I applied for the job, turns out she went to K-State, and we were able to just really build a really cool connection. It's like, oh, you went to K-State, so did I. Oh, you had this professor, yeah. So it was just pure luck. Currently, at the time, I was working for a local not-for-profit called AllCap, and we did great work.
Yeah.
But I was looking for something in which I was able to broaden my horizons and definitely develop a little more of the um, financial analysis side of things. And I realized that locally, Cboe was probably the best organization to do so because it's global in scope and it's actually a very complex and niche industry, exchanges. So I was able to form this connection with the hiring manager. She liked me well enough, and I was qualified for the job that I got in. So I started off as a financial analyst, currently a senior, but learned a lot, and it's a very interesting industry. Yeah, super
Yeah.
cool.
What's something that you really enjoy about the industry and something not so much?
I'll start off with the not so much.
Okay.
It is a relatively complex industry.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot to learn, which is good and bad, right? Because you're learning a lot. So it is very intimidating to step in. I remember when I got the job and it's like, my God, I'm working for a stock/derivatives exchange. Like, I don't belong here. So I felt like I was kind of like a fake, but looking aside though, thankfully because of the culture of the company, I realized that the people I work with, they were all rock stars, highly qualified individuals, and they had a culture of developing talent and also being very honest in the sense of who they are at home, they are at work. So I was able to foster and develop very good relationships and get mentorship from coworkers and also my hiring manager that helped me develop me from an analyst to a senior analyst. So
That's
that was a
awesome.
pretty cool experience.
Talk about the environment being intimidating. And one thing that we've also touched on previously is imposter syndrome and how it shows up a lot for women, people of color in general. So, can you share a little bit about how that's shown up in the journey and why it's an important conversation to have? Um, yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely. I feel sometimes the imposter syndrome comes from lack of understanding of your own worth. And that's sometimes it derives from the inability to see people who look like you in that environment.
Yeah.
Um, Thankfully, Cboe has done a great job in really fostering a very diverse set of talent from different walks, ethnicities, what have you. So that's great. But I remember starting off me feeling like an outlier, not necessarily because of who I am and what I look like, but my late start into the game, so in my lack of experience rather, even though I was qualified, I just personally felt like I'm not qualified for this. So it's definitely a combination of both of those factors. In my story, it was more along the lines of me building the confidence to be ready to understand that hey, I'm capable of doing this, and I'm ready for the challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely there are situations in which I'm assuming other companies or organizations in which yeah, it's very monochromatic. It's usually only one set of people, which I get. But yeah, thankfully so far in my experience, it's been fairly diverse.
Yeah. Have there been any specific practices that have helped you overcome that initial fear when you were stepping into that environment, feeling like you weren't qualified enough?
Yeah, I guess when I started off, it was there was a lot of meetings with C-level executives, and I was like, "Who am I? I just started. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
This is weird. I want to crawl under the table."
Yeah.
So that kind of trial by fire initially really made me feel like I didn't belong there. But in hindsight, it's it really expedited my growth professionally and also personally because it's all right, if I'm an analyst, I just started here. This is my fourth, fifth week, and I'm in this room with a C-level individual. All right, uh, I probably
Probably know a thing or two.
yeah, exactly. I need to be here. It's either I'm gonna learn or I'm gonna figure out whether or not I'm able to do this. So yeah. Does
Yeah,
answer the
for
question?
sure. Yeah. And I want to go a little bit back into your upbringing in Honduras and how that kind of impacted the way you show up. Just not just at work, but just in general. What were some of those cultural values maybe some childhood memories that have really like stuck with you about who you are and how you want to show up and be present?
Yeah. I think, I have a lot of similarities with both my parents, but, when it comes to, like, my personality, I think I lean a little bit towards my mother. My mother, she's a very expressive individual, she's very loving, very charismatic, and even though I believe I have, like, a fraction of her charisma, I always try to, like, engage people in a very, like, honest and, like, real way, and I think from my family's culture, I think that's the one thing that it's really heightened in me as a person, my mom. When it comes to my family overall, I think it just, my background, my experience really just speaks like how like my uncle was able to like bring me in. He was very like open arms. Here's my house. Like I'm gonna treat you like a kid. My parents did that as well for like one of my cousins. Even though like he was older, it was still like my house is open. You live with us, and I feel like family wise, we're very open, very loving. But overall, when it comes to like me as my own person, I think my mom probably had the biggest impact. Um, just because she's just full of joy. You talk to her,
Yeah.
and she's always smiling, and it's something I thinking I should do more because you talk, when I talk to her, she smiles, she looks at you with like intent, and she's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like you immediately like just have a connection
Feel
with her. It's like
welcomed. Yeah.
exactly, feel welcome, love, and I'm like, that's something I love about her, and something I have to intentionally start replicating just because I wanna make people feel that way because, you know, I don't know, it's like you're making someone's day, even though, like, it's maybe very small talk, you're there in that moment, I think it's great.
I think it's probably also a lot of it is like cultural of being able coming from a
Yeah,
again, it's just I so many of these experiences and a lot of these interviews, it's just like we all come from different backgrounds, but just having that immigrant experience of coming from a lot of culture where family is like number one, a lot of the experiences are very welcoming and the connection to our elders is also a really important piece of that journey.
yeah, completely agree.
So is the rest of your family now in America?
So, my older sister, younger brother, and my mother, my dad flies, back and forth. Um, then I have family in South America, some family in Europe, but mostly is located in the States.
Yeah.
Uh,
Have you gone back home?
I haven't been back home in a while, and to be honest, this is something that's happened this year. My grandparents, they're getting up in age, and I need to see them
Yeah.
very soon. And I feel bad because I was supposed to see them last year, late last year. Wasn't able to work, so now for me, for at least for this year, is my mission to like see them.
Yeah.
My grandma, she had a huge impact in my life. Both my grandparents were still alive. Um, they live in my same hometown. Live in Tela, so like they were always present. My grandmother, very strong lady. Tragedy struck her relatively young. She lost like a daughter when um, her daughter was about like 23, 24. So that really impacted her. And she started a school in her honor. And growing up, I attended my grandma's school. So like she was always present. I always saw her on a daily basis. And she even taught me classes. So it's like I've always had a very good relationship with her. And she she means a lot, and
Yeah.
I really need to see her, and to be honest, I'll feel a little emotional thinking it's like, "Man, I told her I was gonna see her last year,"
Yeah.
and then I kinda, like I broke the promise, now I'm like, "I need to see her
You
this."
have to see her this year. You have to make a
Yeah,
commitment to it.
I know, it's like, I
That's awesome.
can't do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they ever come to America? Is that
No, my grandma sometimes travels to the States, but she, maybe just to see some family, like, I haven't been able to see her here. I do not recall when was the last time she
yeah.
did that. So and also, they're really getting up in age, so it's like, then
Very
travel's
understandable. Yep.
a little hard.
Um, Transitioning a little bit more now just to the broader overall journey and experience. You mentioned resilience, adaptability, and connection, and those are three words that come up really often in the entire experience. And you said that there are key themes in your experience, being an immigrant and building Kansas to be home. How have these qualities specifically impacted your personal journey?
I think overall, those 3 things have definitely helped me, become who I am today.
Yeah.
Coming here at a very early age, I had to, like, figure out how to fit in, how to be but still be true to myself. Thankfully, given how close I am to, like, my cultural upbringing, first generation, I still have that, and I don't miss it So for me, I'm able to like really kind of walk this line in which I know who I am, I know what my background is, but I know like the things I need to do in order for me to be at times palatable for individuals here. And not to say that's good or bad, like everything's kind of relevant in my opinion, but overall, it's like adapting has always been a very important piece in my life because, fitting in is probably, I think that's a very human thing. It's like you don't want to be an outlier, you don't want to be an outcast, right? So, um, thankfully, like my perspective is like you don't need to really give up who you are to fit in because this country's so diverse and we have so many different cultural like influences that like you can still be yourself and as long as you're able to communicate appropriately, it's like, all right, man, you fit in. So yeah, yeah, like to be honest, like it's also probably like more deeply, it's probably been like my greatest fear. It's like not fitting in, it's like so it's always been a tenet of mine. It's like, all right, I'm gonna do my best, like adapt and also like maybe try people like me. I know it's kind of weird, but
It's a complicated relationship when you're an immigrant of like, how much do I actually hold on to versus like, how much am I supposed to like let go of? Like,
yeah,
what's the line?
exactly.
And no one ever tells you what the line is.
Yeah,
And so you're always just trying to figure it out.
yeah,
Um, you talked a little bit again about that cultural piece and trying to figure out where to adapt and where not to adapt. Are there specific cultural practices or culture or the language that you've kept on that have been really important to you throughout this journey?
yeah. So my wife, she speaks English only, so language at home usually is obviously in English. Um, my mom here and my brother, I'm always able to speak Spanish with them. So from a language perspective, sometimes I do get my fix. Culturally, turns out like Honduran culture is very similar to at least like the well, overall like American culture. Um, Catholic country. United States of America is predominantly like Christian, or at least it was founded upon those values. So overall, like there's not that big of a difference there. So thankfully, is that's okay. So it is mostly about like, at least from my perspective, is food, which I love food. I love to eat. To be honest, I'm a pig. I love food, and then language at times because I don't know that many Hondurans here. So it's like, as you know, it's like even in the States, there's going to be a slight deviation, like idioms and like little phrases and rather tone and accents depending where you are in the States. Same thing with Spanish here in the States. It's mostly, at least in the Midwest, the people I've met, mostly Mexican. So it's like they speak in their own way. I can understand 99% of it, but depending, sometimes,
Dialect is
yeah,
different. Yeah.
exactly. Sometimes it's a bit off. But um, so in a nutshell, culturally, I'm there, but food is really what I miss, and then language sometimes.
Yeah.
But if my mom's around, my brother's around, I can talk to them.
Yeah. Food's a big one.
Oh, it's the big, to be honest, probably the biggest thing in my life. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love food.
Were you able to try more ethnic food when you were in New York?
Yes. So earlier, before we started, mentioned that oxtail I eat, and it was in Elmont, Nassau County. It was literally the best oxtail I've had in this Jamaican restaurant. It was killer, amazing, really good. What else? We had some Thai food in Brooklyn, was great. We had some Indian in Brooklyn as well, was great. To remember what else. We had really good Mexican in Bronx, was really good. But to be honest, here in the Midwest, Mexican is ubiquitous. So we have a great assortment of like different types of cuisines, even like central, northern, southern Mexico. So, but it was still good. But yeah, by far the highlight was that oxtail. It was so good.
Glad.
Look, the rice and beans, I remember it was amazing. It was, it had to be cooked with coconut milk because you can just taste the coconut, but it was like, it was well balanced and it was great.
I'm glad you enjoyed
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously very, very descriptive here, very, very emotional.
New York is all about the food, and I feel like when you go from Kansas or like a more Midwestern state or like a smaller state to a big state and it's New York City, like you're gonna get a good
Yeah.
experience.
No, it was great. Man, I'm trying to think what else did I have? Late night pizza was awesome.
Yeah. Did you have bagels?
I did, yes. We went to this place, what was it? Cream cheese and chives was great.
Yeah.
Remember last time I went there, I had the lox bagel,
Yeah.
amazing, but I had to try something else just to switch it up. But yeah, bagels were great. Um, oh yeah, I tried eating like 2 slices of pizza, those big slices,
Yeah.
very late one night, and, I almost thought I was going to like throw it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They're
Anyways,
big slices.
yeah. My buddy told me, dude, I think 2 slices too much for you. But I was trying to prove a point to him to be like, dude, I can eat this. Don't worry. But yeah,
Well, you
anyways,
did eat it. Point was proved,
I
even if it was challenging.
I did eat it. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, is there anything you want to touch on that I haven't covered?
Yeah, tell me more about yourself, like about your experience. I
Yeah.
think this has been slightly one-sided.
No,
Obviously,
it's okay.
and, like I know your experience. Like you grew up here, with your parents, and you always talk about like how like your cousins are basically like your siblings, very tight knit.
Yes.
And your move from New York to the Midwest from Kansas has been like very significant in your life. So like,
Yeah.
tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I grew up with cousins, all boys. Not slightly salty about that at all, but it was just it was my mom's side cousins, and then we moved to Kansas in 2017, and then it was all dad's side's cousins. And so my dad's side, I am the youngest. I'm like literally the baby of the family. I think the cousin above me, there's a 10-year gap.
Wow.
And then my brother's in between us, and that's a 5-year gap. So like
Okay.
I am the youngest out of everybody. And so when we came here, it was like making up for lost time because we didn't really have much of our childhood together. They have memories of me when I was a little baby. So like I don't know much about them. And so have gotten really close. It's my dad's brother's kids, daughter that I'm really close to. And so yeah, I mean, we were talking about babies. She has 2 kids. She's a 2-year-old and an almost 4-month-old, which is so crazy.
It's awesome.
But we both have like had very like deep conversations about just like raising kids with like our background and our families and just how important it is to her to like raise her kids with certain like values and have memories of their grandparents and stuff. And so it's really cool to be able to see like my cousins pass things on to the next generation and see like all the sacrifice that went into our parents' journeys to like now my uncle's grandkids are like having a life that they never would have imagined being able to have. So, we've had quite a few experiences here in Kansas, but that's definitely been one of the highlights. It's just like seeing the family grow and seeing my cousins being able to like just build this awesome life that they really are enjoying and having like my uncle and my dad like live life through their great nieces and nephew and their great kids like or grandchildren. So yeah, I mean, we grew up in New York City with them for a little bit, but again, I was a baby, so I don't really remember much of that. And then we came to Kansas, but I did not have the experience you had. So
Yeah, I mean, it's so to give you a little more background, I came from a very small town to a bigger town and to a smaller town in the American perspective. So for me, I've always been from a small town.
yeah,
So,
like how small was the town actually?
like I'm talking about like probably about like what downtown, like the actual city town, 50,000 people. So it's like it's basically almost Manhattan level. It's
Yeah.
like slightly smaller. So
I mean, my parents came from villages. So when we went back to India 2013, 2016, and then 2023, and villages are different in that it's like it can be 20 people, it can be 200 people, and you're technically related to everybody in your village. Like they're all like your cousin, not actually, but like they're your cousins and then they're your aunts and uncles. Like you don't call anybody not an aunt or uncle. Like you're all related
that's awesome.
in some way. Um so I guess I have that like small town experience, but that was only going back for 2 months and that was like no, like that's India. Like that's how India is supposed to be. And in my head, New York City was America. Like everywhere was New York. Ugh. And so coming to Olathe, I remember landing and there was no traffic on our way home. There was nothing to see. This was the old KCI, mind you.
Oh, okay.
Um,
You were immediately bored. Get me out of
it
here.
was just like, where are we? What are we doing? I was excited to just land and meet my family because I don't have any recollection of meeting them. So I was excited for that.
Mhm.
And after I met them, and after like 2 days, because it took my dad and my brother 2 days to get here on a truck, and we moved into like our actual house, I was just like, get me out of here. Like I did not enjoy it.
Okay.
I did not enjoy it for a while.
But okay, so after adapting, there's got to be something that you must like that Midwest does better than New York, right? There's got to be at least something.
I roll.
Come on.
Yes, Midwest does quite a few things relatively good compared to
Okay, that's a compliment. Yeah.
it's the community. Like it truly is the people. And I know that's what everybody says about the Midwest, but having the New York experience and then having the Indy experience and now Kansas, it's the people. Like everybody just feels like family and it's a community that you just can't really find in bigger cities. I mean, you can, but it's not as tight knit, it's not as welcoming, it's not as belonging. Um and I guess we've kind of made Olathe or Kansas home over the past almost 8 years. It was challenging at first though because I went from a big family, like I grew up with my cousins,
Mhm.
to just being alone. My brother went to college. My cousins obviously stayed in New York. I had my older cousins, but they all had full-time jobs. Like they were older. They were not my age.
Okay.
And my parents would go to work. And so it truly was just like me for a really, really long time. I didn't really have any friends here for the first because I entered in 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
So
You
that
were young.
I was super young and like everybody had their groups at that point. And it's like there's just a newbie 8th grader and then everybody goes to different high schools. And so like high school would have like was gonna be the fresh start, but like 8th grade was just like I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like I just doesn't feel like home. And big change was that I went from an incredibly diverse middle school to like nobody looking at like me
Yeah.
in high school or in middle school here. And that was really rough, and, like, living in a big house, I hated it. My entire life in New York, I wanted a house with stairs or, like, an apartment with stairs. That was, like, the dream, and we finally got it, and my mom and I couldn't stand it. We were like, the house is big, but, like, we just don't have, like, the things to, like, fill it. Not material things, but, like, but my brother's in college, we feel alone, like,
We
it's
need
just
family here.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, like, the family piece, it was just, like, the big thing that was missing, so we've definitely grown to loving it more, and I'm not to dismiss what Olathe has or just Kansas has to offer. I mean, it truly is home now,
Yeah.
um, and I don't wanna leave, so I guess they gotta do something, right?
Yeah. You don't wanna leave. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
I'm too accustomed to the life now.
Yeah.
I went back to New York City and I was like, "Can everybody just slow down?" All will be well.
Dude,
All will be well, truly. So,
you've converted completely now.
yeah, I don't like to admit it, but yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, I know. I would agree with everything you said when it comes to, like, the culture here and how it feels like home. I agree, and that's why, like, people tell me, it's like, "Do you wanna leave somewhere or go somewhere else or whatever?" It's like, "No, like, this feels like home to me."
yeah.
It's great.
And I think it probably was a little bit easier in that you went from like small town to a little bit bigger, back to a small town, but you still had the like small town experience.
Yeah,
Um, whereas mine was just city and not a small town, but like a suburbia, like the urban area. So
absolutely.
that changed perspective on a lot of things. Yeah.
In hindsight, I think I would have been able to do it in New York. I love fast walking,
Yeah.
and I love just, like, guarding through. Everything else, I would have just, like, completely failed, you know?
Yeah.
So
It's also changed a lot. Like I don't we went back to New York end of last year, so the end of 2024, and I don't remember it being like the New York I grew up in, which was really just like it was sad. So we lived in Queens, so we went back to Queens. Actually, in the apartment we lived in, there were 6 apartments in the building. And so it was a very like tight-knit community. And 4 out of the 6 of those was either family or family friends. So like we knew everybody in that apartment.
right.
And like we were close to our neighbors too. And so, like, right downstairs was my uncle, my mom's brother, and his kids that I grew up with, and then across them was, another Indian family we were close to, and then upstairs was a Pakistani family we were close to, and so, like, we knew everybody. So when we were the first ones out of, like, that all of those people to move out, and then the Pakistani family moved out, and then the other Indian family moved out, and then my uncle's family moved out, and when my uncle's family moved out, one of our other close family friends moved into that apartment because they were 4 of them living in a studio
Wow.
in New York City. and they finally got a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was like a huge win, an affordable, somewhat affordable 2-bedroom in New York City. And so we were actually able to go back to our apartment, like
That's so cool.
where I was born and raised, or like my parents, like second home here. And it was just like, I remember the apartment being exactly, the layout was the same, but it was obviously like decorated different. I remember like just the nostalgia walking up to the building, which is just, it's weird to have that attachment to like a building, but it just like all the memories come flooding back. There's like a small fence in front of the apartment, and it's like it had like black rods, all it's like a black rotted fence, but 2 of the rods were broken. And so like it the gap between the 2 were like bigger, and as a kid I would squeeze through that gap, and I was like, I looked at my brother and I was like, bet on how likely I is that I can squeeze through that right now.
You're able to?
I was like 4 or 5 years old, that's I was doing it. But it's like those memories were still there, and so I enjoyed that part a lot, and we, walked a lot all over Flushing, which was really nice, but then we went to downtown, Flushing, and it's like Chinatown, and it was just, it felt like everybody, it just like the buildings weren't the same. There was a McDonald's that used to be at a certain spot, and the McDonald's wasn't there. All these new stores were up. All this like new development was happening. It was like 10 times busier. I felt like I didn't know how to navigate the street. And it was like, these were my streets. Like, I don't know how to like walk here anymore. Yeah. The bus line was like backed up, and like the bus line was never backed up growing up as a kid. And it just got so much busier. And the other big part of it was that all of our family had moved to Long Island. And so that's like a town outside of the city. And so, so much of what I had, like, what I characterized Flushing with the people,
Sure.
and the people were no longer there. Yeah. They were in on Long Island, which technically is in New York City. And so it just like made all of that different. Even going to Manhattan, I was like, that's no, like, where's this restaurant? Like, that's where we went. And all these like new markets and Christmas things. And it's just like, that wasn't there when I was a kid. And so things are just different.
I get it. Not all you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Not nothing bad. It's just not
yeah, it's
what I,
different.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
It's a great city. Best city, I think.
I did have that feeling when I visited home last time because everything just like literally just developed. And I was like, wow, crazy.
Yeah.
The people I remember weren't there. So I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Feels like you're ghost of the past, but like in a way it's
You expect it kind of to like, you expect to leave and like the place hit the
same thing. Yeah. I know that. Yeah, but like
we went back and everybody was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so grown up. And I was like, yeah, we weren't gonna stay like, what was I, like 12 when I left?
wow.
And I was like, we weren't gonna stay that. And I remember seeing my childhood best friend. We grew up together, and he's in a 6 or 7 year med program. And he was talking about how he had just taken his MCAT and he's going to med school after the semester. And I was like, you're gonna what? Like, you're gonna be a like, you're gonna be a doctor? And so it was crazy of just like, I feel like we were just running around and like doing kid stuff just yesterday, and like, now you're going to med school, and apparently like, it's just, where has time gone? So
Well, let me tell you this. I'm 30 and I still feel that way. So it's gonna get worse.
oh god,
It's gonna get worse. So it's just
I remember turning 20, and I had like a small little like, not crisis, but it was just like, whoa, like, I'm no longer a teen.
yeah, no.
And I feel like it just gets every year. My friends are like, 21's fun, right? Like, you turn 20, you get a little bit emotional. You turn 21, it's super fun. You turn 22, and then you realize that your birthdays don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just another birthday.
Yeah.
And then you just realize like, now you've hit adulting. And I was like, I don't know if I want to like hit that level of adulting.
No. Two things. So I still feel like a kid, even though I'm 30. And 2 years ago, I started like forgetting what my real age was. And then my wife corrected me, dude, it's like, you're 29. What's going on here? Yeah, it just gets weird, but it won't stop. So
Oh gosh. That's the night before my birthday, I got in bed purposefully because I hate staying up and like seeing notifications pop up. I want to wake up to it. And so I went to bed a little bit earlier, and I just, like, I laid there and I was like, "So, like, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm no longer gonna be a teen, and that's really okay, like, that's really okay." And I just started, like, running through memories of my childhood, and I all of a sudden was not okay. I was like, "This is just I wanna grasp onto this a little bit longer." Like, it feels that maybe I've grown up too fast, and then you wake up and you're 20.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been yeah, it's that was going back home was just like a whoa. So, yeah,
It's a blessing,
it is. It truly is, and so I'm excited to go back to, like, home, like, where my parents are from and see
When
that.
is this happening?
We don't know yet, probably sometime this year.
Sick. Nice.
Yeah. I didn't promise my grandparents I was coming, but I did say I would come soon.
Okay. Don't make the same mistake I made, okay? Once you have the ticket, be like, all right, I'm actually coming.
I said I would come soon.
Okay.
And so they don't know when soon is. Nice. But I'm hoping to go see them this year just because, like you said, they're also getting older. Um, and I don't know. There's a lot I feel like I still need to know about them. And I don't feel like I know quite enough about them. That's the one thing I regret with my dad's grandparents was they passed away in 2020, and I had only seen them in 2013. Only interacted with them every day for 2 months in 2013. And so when they passed away, my grandma and my dad were really close. Like, my dad was the favorite and everybody knew it, and it just was not pretty, honestly, but, um, that impacted him a lot and seeing how, like, that relationship he had with his parents and not knowing much about my grandparents and realizing that in hindsight of, like, I don't know. Like, now it's just stories. Now it's just, like, whatever
Yep.
memories dad has or my uncle has about them that I know. I will never know anything from, like, their perspective, and so I wanna know more from my mom's parents because, man, like, my grandfather served in the military for a really long time, and, like, you gotta have some story, right? And that whole time, my grandma was raising 4 kids by herself, 3 daughters, which was really looked down upon at that time. So, like, a sole woman raising 3 daughters and a son on her own was, like, a big no-no, and she did it, and they all turned out great, so they're all fine. But, like, what was that like for her? And, like, my mom when she got deported back the first time she came to America, or she didn't even get here. She was at her connection, and she didn't have the right documentation to enter, so she got deported back to New Delhi, which is now modern day 8 hours away. But back then, they didn't have any form of communication to share that she got deported back, and so, like, she has this journey of, like, going back to her village, and then everybody, like, makes fun of her because it's like, "Oh, you tried going to America and you failed." Like, that was a huge thing, so there's a lot of stories that, like,
Yeah.
I wanna know.
Tell me this. Do you speak the language well enough to like be able to
Oh, yeah.
communicate directly with her?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So first person interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing that, like, me and my brother both, like, we got this was when we first went back in 2013, we were able to speak to everybody, and, like, my everybody was telling my parents of, like, there are kids here in India that can't speak as good as your kids do, and me and my brother are just like, "Well, we got this." Like, "We got this," 'cause my parents didn't let us speak English at home growing up, so we only spoke Punjabi, and then when we went to school, everybody was like not everybody, but they're like, "They need ESL," and mom was like, "No, they're not getting put in ESL," and they're like, "No, like, your kids don't speak the language," and mom was like, "That's really not a problem, like, they'll be fine," and so they didn't put us in ESL because back then, like, I guess they had the power to not like, my mom had the power to not do that, um, and so we didn't get put into ESL, and we just learned English through, like, interacting. I don't have no memories of not knowing English, but
That was not a problem. Look
yeah.
at you. Like no issue whatsoever.
Yeah.
So trial by fire.
Yeah, sure, it was challenging, but I don't remember it being challenging, so
That's awesome.
yeah.
Punjabi, great language.
Yeah,
Love it. Yeah.
it's fun, and it's fun to be able to, like I'm sure you feel the same way, but, like, joke in both languages and appreciate music in those languages,
Yes.
that's a huge win.
You see, that's the issue. Like when we're talking about culture and like knowing the language, you miss a lot whenever it's translated. And also, like you cannot really, you're missing something. If you don't speak the language, something's off. You can still communicate, but it's like it's not as intimate as it could be if you're speaking the same language.
And it's, like, the dialect too, right? Does, like,
Right.
Punjabi is an aggressive language, and so you can translate it, but if you like directly translate it, it comes across as the completely wrong thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And if you try to translate it, it's like, but that's not actually what that means. Like, yeah, that's not like actually.
I get
So,
it. Sometimes context is lost.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's why language is just so incredibly important. Even like whatever language, just knowing a second language and having the understanding of a different culture and how
Completely agree.
people communicate. Because I mean, I'm assuming that even Spanish across various different countries is like different, the dialect, and the way people speak it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're speaking, let's say someone from Mexico versus someone from Argentina, you can still communicate, but a lot of the little like idioms are off, and obviously the accent. So, but yeah, it's it's very important to like be able to speak the same language.
Yeah.
Mom, I love when people are bilingual or know more than one language because it just means you're able to like talk to so many more people organically.
Yeah.
You know, and especially like when you surprise someone like speaking the language and they just look at you like, "Whoa, you speak very well, man. What's going on?" It's like you immediately, it's like, "I like this person.
No, literally.
I'll take my time and talk to you."
Yeah.
So I think it's good. Brownie points.
Yeah. Our board president is Punjabi, and one of the big challenges when we first moved to Olathe was that there was not a lot of Punjabi people, and my dad helped form the Punjabi community in New York. It's a huge community there, and so the transition of like my dad was a founding member, and now we know nobody was just like, well, that also contributed to that. Like, what are we doing here? Now the board president is Punjabi, and her and I will just start like speaking Punjabi the most randomest times, or like we'll be talking and like we'll drop in a word or two, and they're like, wait, we can't do this here. Like, but it's just fun. Like it provides a sense of comfort of like we understand what we're trying to say, we're trying to communicate, but there's just different words to say it better. It's a different language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool.
Cool. Well, I want to end off by asking you if there is I asked 2 questions. Usually you can choose which one you want to answer, or you can answer both. First one is, what advice would you give to someone that was like following the same journey as you? Or the second one is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
So funny because it's literally the same answer. Get a mentor. That's it.
Yeah.
Literally. If I could tell myself that, like you spoke, starting college, get a mentor, and also someone else trying to figure out life, get a mentor as well. It's a different point of view. Sometimes your parents want what's best for you, but they don't know how to help you get there. So get that person who can help you get there. So mentorship. That's it. For me and to someone else.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add that we haven't touched on?
No, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Privilege.
Well, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Boom.